Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Understanding the development controls. Under Rules 7 and 8 of the Revised Implementing Rules and Regulations of PD number 1096, National Building Code of the Philippines.
Welcome back to another edition of our discussion for Rule 7 and 8 of the revised IRR of the NBCP. Ngayon, ang ating magiging topic ay ang isang residential R-5 zone. So, ang ating project ay isang high-rise residential building located sa isang R5 zone na area at may total lot area na 1,000 square meters. It is an inside lot with a 20-meter wide frontage facing west at merong 12-meter wide road sa west side ng property. So if we are going to compare it with the suggested minimum lot size for R5, ang inside lot suggested minimum is 500 square meters. Our project site is 1,000 square meters, so double doon sa suggested minimum lot size. So i-drawing natin ang lote. So we have 20 meters by 50 meters na lot, no? Facing a 12-meter road at the west side of the property. At alamin natin ngayon what is the development potential of this lot. Ano ang mga development controls na magpe-prevail para malaman natin ang development potential ng loteng ito. Okay, so we have two options for development. One option is to have a building without firewall. So, i-determine natin ano yung mga development controls for the project if the building will have no firewall. And our second option is building with firewall. So, alamin natin what are the development controls for the project if the building will have a firewall. So, let's start with the first option, building without firewall. So, which means that we will have yards on all sides of the lot. So, we are going to determine what is the allowable maximum building footprint or AMBF for the project if the building shall have no firewalls, or what is the allowable maximum percentage of site occupancy maximum PSO for the project if the building shall have no firewalls. So for a start, ang una nating titingnan muna ay ang table 8.2. Ito yung minimum setbacks for residential buildings. At ang R5 dito ay merong 6 meters minimum setback at the front and 3 meters at the side and at the rear. So gawa tayo ng drawing dyan sa may lote ng isang building considering the minimum setbacks, and then we provide the minimum setbacks. Makukuha natin yung dimension ng building. For example, we have 20 meters wide frontage. Ibawas natin yung 3 meters at both sides. We will get the maximum width of the building at 14 meters. Tapos itong 50 meters na depth, ibawas natin yung front setback minimum na 6 saka 3 meters sa likod. Makukuha natin yung maximum depth of the building. Maximum dimension depth ng building, no? So from there, we now have the dimension of this blue rectangular area, which is our AMBF based on the minimum setbacks. So we just multiply yung 14 meters by 41 meters. We will get the AMBFS of 574 square meters, and our maximum PSO based on the minimum setbacks at 574 over 1,000, our TLA, will give you 57.4%. Now we have to compare our initial value of the AMBF maximum PSO with other references like this one, table 8.1 is the reference table for the maximum PSO, and if we look at R5 dito, without firewall, shows 70%. And 70% of our total lot area will give you an AMBF of 700 square meters. So, if we are to consider the provision in the building code that says in determining the allowable maximum building footprint or AMBF for buildings and related habitable structures, the more stringent but applicable regulation should be observed. So if we are going to compare the two answers or values for our AMBF and the maximum PSO, lalabas dito ang pinaka-most stringent ay galing sa minimum setbacks or table 8.2. So yan na ang magiging final answer natin for the AMBF and the maximum PSO, 574 square meters, 57.4%. Okay, so ang next naman natin na kukunin is the allowable minimum total open space within lot for the project or the minimum TOSL for the project if the building shall have no firewall. So, ang ating consideration dyan is this statement again from the NBCP saying that the minimum total open space within lot or minimum TOSL are portions of the TLA not occupied by the maximum allowable PSO, and that means we have the resultant minimum TOSL. So, if we're going to deduct the AMBF most stringent or the maximum PSO most stringent from the TLA, we will arrive at the resultant minimum TOSL. So it will be 1000 TLA minus this AMBF most stringent will give you a resulting minimum TOSL of 426 square meters. So this yellow area left at the side is 426 square meters, your minimum TOSL resultant. And 100% minus 57.4, our most stringent maximum PSO, will give you a minimum TOSL in percentage at 42.6% of the total lot area. However, if we are going to consider yung reference table for the minimum TOSL, which is table 8.G.6, ang lalabas na value dito for the minimum TOSL for R1 that is without firewalls, it says here inside lot. Not for R1 but for R5 rather. 30% for other residential use. So whether that is R3, R4, and R5, because nandito yung R1, nandito yung R2, no? So this will be for R3, R4, and R5, 30% of the TLA. So therefore, our minimum TOSL is 30% of 1,000 will give you 300 square meters. So, ilagay na natin sa table yung ating final value ng minimum TOSL coming from that reference table. 30% of the TLA, 300 square meters. Next is we are going to determine what is the allowable minimum unpaved surface area or minimum USA for the project if the building shall have no firewall. So, for the minimum USA value, ang ano natin dito palagi, reference is table 8.1. So, we look at R5 here, minimum USA, this is without firewall na values. 10% of the TLA will give you a minimum USA of 100 square meters. And then, we go now to the allowable maximum impervious surface area or maximum ISA for the project if the building shall have no firewall. Again, our reference is table 8.1. So we just look at this value without firewall is 20% of the TLA. So that will give you 200 square meters for your maximum impervious surface area. And we move on to the maximum allowable construction area, or MACA, for the project if the building shall have no firewall. Our reference also is table 8.1. We only have to add two values, yung maximum PSO dito na 70% plus yung maximum allowable ISA na value dito, which is 20%, will give you a MACA of 90%. So that will give you 900 square meters. So we now complete our tabulation for all the values that we have. So the AMBF and the maximum PSO, this one, are all based on the minimum setbacks because that is the most stringent. While the rest, the minimum TOSL, minimum USA, maximum ISA, and MACA, were all derived from tables. Table for the minimum TOSL for the this one. At itong minimum USA, maximum ISA, MACA naman ay galing sa table 8.1. So we now go to the determining the allowable maximum gross floor area for the project if the building shall have no firewall. So ito medyo madali lang ito because our reference is just this formula. Our allowable maximum GFA will be your TLA times the maximum recommended floor to lot area ratio. So, ano natin dito, reference for the recommended floor to lot area ratio is table 7.G.1. At nalagay dito for residential R-5 is 9 is the maximum designated FLAR. So, we only have to multiply 9 by our total lot area of 1,000. Will give you now a maximum GFA value of 9,000 square meters. So we now go to the computation for the allowable maximum total gross floor area or maximum TGFA for the project if the building shall have no firewall. So meron tayong initial na reference. Our first reference for the maximum TGFA is based on table 7.1 because this is the reference table for the maximum TGFA based on the allowed percentage of site occupancy. So our building is without firewall, R5, inside lot, and it shows here 18 by 80% of the TLA. So it means that it will be 18 by 80% of 1,000 square meters or 14,400 square meters. Now another possible reference for our maximum TGFA is basing it on the maximum GFA, wherein we are going to convert our value of the maximum GFA to its corresponding maximum TGFA value by making use of this conversion table. Table 7.G.2 at ang nakalagay dito na multiplier para ma-convert natin ng GFA to TGFA ay 1.2. So kung ano yung value natin ng maximum GFA kanina na 9,000 square meters, na-compute natin yung max GFA galing sa FLAR designated maximum, no? Tsaka TLA. Kung ano man yung maximum GFA na yan, i-multiply natin sa 1.20 na multiplier, will give you now a maximum TGFA value of 10,800 square meters. So, i-finalize natin ang ating mga development controls tungkol sa floor areas ng building. Ang maximum GFA natin ay 9,000 square meters, nakabase yan sa table 7.G.1 or an FLAR designated table. At yung ating maximum TGFA galing sa table 7.1 is 14,400 square meters. Pero yung isa pang ating value ng maximum TGFA galing sa table 7.G.2, yung conversion table, lalabas na 10,800 square meters. So, kung i-compare natin itong dalawang value ng maximum TGFA, supposedly, ang most stringent natin dito ay yung galing sa conversion table na 10,800 square meters. So that's it for our values if we have a building without firewall. We now go to the values if you prefer to have a building with firewall. So we are now going to determine the allowable maximum building footprint for the project, as well as the allowable maximum percentage of site occupancy for the project. So walang nakalagay dito walang nakalagay na phrase na if the building shall not have a firewall. So therefore, we are going to determine this yung merong firewall kasi allowed naman ang firewall sa R-5. However, we have two options for the location of the firewall. So option 1 is you can have firewalls at both sides of the property, and option 2 will be having firewalls at one side and at the rear side of the property. So yan yung possible locations ng firewall. So unahin natin kung meron kang firewalls at both sides of the property, ano ang ating magiging AMBF. So what is the allowable maximum building footprint or AMBF for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property? Or what is the allowable maximum percentage of site occupancy, maximum PSO for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property? So i-check natin yung firewall provisions. Sabi dito, ang firewall daw for R5 use or occupancy with a firewall on two sides. A firewall can be erected on a maximum of 75% of the total length of each side property line. So sa bawat side ng property, pinaka-maximum na pwede mong ilagay na firewall length ay hanggang 75% lang ng 50 meters. And provided that all firewall construction at the side property line shall not exceed 50% of the total perimeter of the R5 property. So ibig sabihin, yung dalawang firewalls mo at the one side and the other side, pag tinotal mo, should not exceed more than 50% of the perimeter length of the property. Provided also that side firewalls in R5 uses or occupancy shall only be allowed for a maximum 8-story component structure, and that will be the podium. And provided further that all applicable stipulations of the fire code are strictly followed. So let us check the firewall length. Up to how much can we have? Up to how long will be our firewall? So, compute natin muna at any side. Sabi dito, 75% daw of the side property line. So, 50 meters times 75% of that. The maximum length of the firewall at any side is 37.5 meters. Now, let us compute for the perimeter. So, based on the perimeter, it shouldn't exceed more than 50% of the perimeter length, or 140 meters. 140 meters is our perimeter. We have 20 plus 50 plus 20 plus 50 will give you a total perimeter length of 140, and 50% of that is 70 meters. So if you compare the two requirements, if you have 37.5 at both sides, it will be a total of 75 meters, and that will be exceeding the requirement maximum of 70 meters. So which means that ang magpe-prevail natin dito is a maximum length of the two firewalls at 70 meters. So meaning, ang firewalls natin, pwedeng gawin natin na 35 meters at equal sides. Anyway, yung 35 meters will not be exceeding the 37.5 maximum. Or at one side, you can have 37.5 meters, the maximum length, and the other side will be only 32.5 meters. So if you add this one and this one together, it will be a total of 70 meters maximum length. So this is how you check whether your firewall is within the required limits. So, gamitin natin dito ay ang 35 meters para equal. Okay. Yan. Yan ang 35 meters natin na firewall length at both sides, no? So, kunin muna natin ang AMBF without firewall. Ito yung AMBF natin without firewall kanina. This is based on the minimum setback. So, it means na this 3 meters is already a fixed dimension. No? Because this AMBF, ang fixed dimension natin dyan is 14 by 41. And we now determine ano yung additional natin. Yung light blue na to will be our additional area due to our firewall construction. So sa firewall natin, kung 35 meters yan, ibawas natin yung extension na 0.6 para makuha yung dimension dito. Ayan. So that will give you 35 meters minus 0.6 or 0.6 or a total of 1.2 deduction. And then we multiply it by this width, the minimum setback of 3 meters, and we have two sides. That will give you a total additional area of 202.8 square meters. So which means our total AMBF with firewall at both sides will be this one, 574, plus this additional of 202.8 will give you a total of 776.8 square meters. In percentage, our maximum PSO will be at 77.68%. So we compare that value with table 8.1, and it shows here that for R-5 with firewall is at 80% or 800 square meters. So if we are to compare, it is now the value coming from the minimum setbacks, which is the more stringent one, 776.8 or 77.68%. So we take a look at the other requirements. If we have firewall at both sides of the property, what is the allowable minimum total open space within lot or minimum TOSL for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property? So again, we are to check based on the statement that the minimum TOSL are portions of the lot of the TLA that occupied by the maximum allowable PSO. So it will be again our resultant minimum total open space within lot. So we only have to deduct this most stringent AMBF or maximum PSO from our total lot area to get the resultant minimum TOSL. So 1,000 times this AMBF will give you a minimum TOSL of 223.2 square meters, or 100% minus 77.68%, our most stringent maximum PSO, will give you a resultant minimum TOSL of 22.32% of the TLA. But looking again at table 8.G.6, our allowable minimum total open space within lot reference table, here inside lot with firewall shows that if this is for R2, this will be for other residential R3, R4, and R5. So our minimum TOSL therefore based on this table is 20% of 1,000, our TLA will give you 200 square meters. And then we compute for the allowable minimum unpaved surface area for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property. Our reference here is only table 8.1. So the value here with firewall minimum USA for R5 is 10% of the TLA will give you 100 square meters. And then computing for the allowable maximum impervious surface area or maximum ISA for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property. Again, ang ating reference dito ay ang table 8.1. Nakalagay dyan, maximum allowable ISA is 10% of the TLA, is also 100 square meters. And we go to the maximum allowable construction area, or MACA, for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property. So our reference again is also table 8.1. We only have to add the maximum PSO value there plus the maximum ISA value in the table. So that will give you now 90% of the TLA, or 1,000 square meters, will give you a MACA value of 900 square meters. So we now finalize our answer for the development controls if you have firewalls at both sides of the property. So again here, our values for the AMBF and the maximum PSO are all based on the minimum setbacks because that is the most stringent one. While this one is from the minimum TOSL table, and the minimum USA, maximum ISA, MACA are all from table 8.1. So now we go to the maximum GFA, allowable maximum gross floor area for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property. Our formula again is our maximum GFA will be our TLA times the maximum recommended floor to lot area ratio. And referring to table 7.G.1, again, we're going to make use of the value there of 9, the maximum, and multiply it by the TLA of 1,000 will give you 9,000 square meters. So napansin nyo, ang ating value ng maximum GFA kanina na walang firewall ay also 9,000 square meters. So which means na ang ating maximum GFA, whether may firewall or wala, will be the same. Okay? Kahit na isaan ilagay ang firewall, ganun din yon. Now we go to the value of the allowable maximum total gross floor area, or maximum TGFA for the project if the building shall have firewalls at both sides of the property. Ang ating reference dito ay table 7.1, the reference table for the allowable maximum TGFA. So, hanapin natin dito yung nakalagay na residential with firewalls, R-5, inside lot will give you 18 by 80% of the TLA. And that will give you a value of 14,400 square meters. You notice also na kanina sa walang firewall, ganito rin ang lumabas na value natin, 18 by 80%. So parehas without or with firewall for R5, parehas ang lumabas na value. So we have 14,400 square meters. Now if we check this maximum TGFA that is based on the maximum GFA, ang gamit natin dito ay multiplier na 1.2. So whether may firewall or wala, ganun din ang multiplier natin, 1.2. At yung maximum GFA natin kanina, 9,000 square meters, i-multiply lang natin sa 1.2 will give you 10,800 square meters. So ito rin kanina ang value ng ating maximum TGFA na walang firewall. Kasi nga, hindi naman nagbabago yung ating maximum GFA with firewall or wala, ganun pa rin ang maximum GFA. At ganun din ang multiplier. May firewall or wala, parehas din ang multiplier. So, this is now our summary for the development controls for the floor areas of the building. At lumalabas na ang value kanina without firewall ay parehas lang dito sa value na may firewall at both sides of the property. Maximum GFA is also 9,000 square meters. Ang maximum TGFA natin is also 14,400 at ang ating maximum TGFA na conversion is also 10,800 square meters. At ito nga ang mas stringent sa dalawang value ng maximum TGFA. So, puntahan naman natin ang susunod na option sa firewall. Diyan ay kung meron kang firewall at one side and the rear of the property. So we are going to determine what is the allowable maximum building footprint, or AMBF, for the project if the building shall have firewalls at one side and rear side of the property, or what is the allowable maximum percentage of site occupancy for the project if the building shall have firewalls at one side and rear of the property. Again, we are going to check the firewall requirements. Accordingly, for an R-5 use or occupancy with a firewall on one side and at the rear property line, a firewall can be erected on a maximum of 65% of the total length of the side property line. So on one side, the maximum length of the firewall is only 65% of that side property line, and on a maximum of 50% of the total length of the rear property line. So sa rear naman, maximum 50% of the rear property line. Provided that all firewall construction shall not exceed 60% of the total perimeter of the R5 property, or the total length of all property lines. So, ibig sabihin, yung perimeter length natin, hindi lalampas ang dalawang firewalls of 60% of the perimeter of the lot. Provided that the side firewalls in R5 uses or occupancy shall only be allowed for a maximum 8-story component structure. So same as kanina, the both sides, no? And that at the rear property line, the maximum allowed firewall height shall only be 14 meters. So mas mababa yung sa rear. Almost 5 floors. A little below, no? Measured vertically from established grade, and provided further that all the applicable stipulations of the fire code are strictly followed. So, i-compute natin yung 65% of the side property line. That will give you a maximum length of the firewall at 32.5 meters. And then, if we compute naman sa rear, ang maximum natin is 50% of 20 meters, will give you 10 meters maximum firewall length. Now, if we check the perimeter length, 60% of the perimeter daw ang maximum length, so 140 ang ating perimeter length, 60% of that will give you a maximum total length of the two firewalls at 84 meters. So if we are going to add these two, the side and the rear, that will give you a total length of only 42.5, which is more stringent than this 84 meters requirement. So it means ang susundan natin, the more stringent one is 32.5 at the side, and at the rear will be at 10 meters. And those dimensions are smaller than the dimension of the building. Okay, so we look at one side, which is 32.5, and the rear is 10 meters. And we have to consider the extension of 0.6. We have to deduct that extension of 0.6 to get the area of this light blue additional floor area, or building footprint area. So if we are to compute now the AMBF based on the minimum setbacks, again, this is our AMBF that is based on the minimum setbacks. The 14 and 41 meters dimension are all fixed, so which means that this setback of 3 meters minimum here and at the rear are also fixed dimensions. So our AMBF is without firewall 574, and then we add the firewalls at the side and at the rear. So this is 32.5 minus a total of 1.2, and then we multiply it by the 3 meters width of the minimum setback. That will give you 93.9 square meters. And we add this also, it will be 10 meters minus 1.2, 1.2 will give you, and multiply it by the 3 meters minimum width, will give you area for this one at 26.4 square meters. So we add this and this together, that will be the total additional area at 120.3, and then we add it to this AMBF of 574, will give you a total of 694.3 square meters. And then in percentage, that will be at 69.43%. That is firewall at one side and the rear. And we are to check that with table 8.1, but here at table 8.1, still our maximum PSO is 80%, or 800 square meters AMBF, still bigger. So again, the one that will prevail is the minimum setbacks, 694.3 square meters or 69.43%, with firewall at one side and the rear of the property. So we compute now the allowable minimum total open space within lot for the project if the building shall have firewalls at one side and at the rear of the property. Meron ba mababago? Let us see first. Ito yung ating minimum total open space within lot, which are portions of the TLA not occupied by the maximum PSO. So that will be, again, the resultant minimum TOSL. So we only have to deduct this most stringent of 694.3 square meters or 69.43%. So that will give you now a minimum TOSL resultant of 305.7 square meters or 30.57% of the total lot area. Now, basing it on table 8.G.6, that will give you actually the same value as kanina, na 20%, because it doesn't describe here where it will be the locations of the firewall. So kahit saan ilagay ang firewall, that will be the minimum TOSL, 20% of 1,000 or 200 square meters. Also, if we are going to check the allowable unpaved surface area, if the building shall have firewalls at one side at the rear of the property, our reference also is table 8.1, the same as kanina, showing a 10% value for the minimum USA or 100 square meters. Again, this value is regardless kung saan ang magiging location ng firewalls nyo. And then for the allowable minimum USA, impervious surface area, if the building shall have firewalls at one side at the rear of the property, also we have table 8.1, no difference in the value as kanina kung saan ang firewall ay both sides. Also, we have also 10% here for the maximum ISA at 100 square meters. And so on for the maximum allowable construction area. If the building shall have firewalls at one side and at the rear of the property. So again, using table 8.1, that will give you a total value for the MACA at 90% or 900 square meters. The same as yung kaya value na yung firewall natin ay both sides of the property. So that if we now complete the tabulation for the development controls at grade level, ito yung AMBF and maximum PSO natin were all derived from the minimum setbacks. Minimum TOSL is from table for the minimum TOSL. Minimum USA and maximum ISA and MACA are all from table 8.1. So, hindi nagbago ito kanina. Kung ano yung value kanina na ang firewall natin ay both sides of the property, ganun pa rin yung value dito for the minimum TOSL, minimum USA, maximum ISA, and MACA. So, let us look at the allowable maximum gross floor area. If the building shall have firewalls at one side and at the rear of the property, mababago ba? Ang ating formula is ganun pa rin as kanina. Our maximum GFA will be our TLA times the maximum recommended. At ganun pa rin ang ating FLR designated maximum is still 9. So which means our maximum GFA will also be the same, 9,000 square meters. Let us look at the maximum TGFA if the building shall have firewalls at one side and at the rear of the property. Our reference is table 7.1. According to this table, wala rin pagbabago kung saan ang location ng firewall. So again, it shows here that our value with firewall is 18 by 80%, or that will be 14,400 square meters. So ang ating conversion factor for the maximum TGFA ay ganun pa rin, 1.2. Kaya ang ating magiging value ng maximum TGFA dito ay parehas pa rin ng kanina. Kasi ang ating multiplier ay di naman nabago. Ang maximum GFA natin ay ganun pa rin. So ang ating maximum TGFA is still 10,800 square meters. Walang nabago kung saan ang location, kahit saan mo i-locate yung dalawang firewalls nyo, no? So yan ang ating summary. Basically the same as kanina, na comparing the maximum TGFA, ang mas stringent pa rin ay yung table, ay yung galing sa conversion, no, ng maximum GFA converted to maximum TGFA. So if we are going to summarize and compare the two values, if you have firewall at both sides of the property, or if you have firewall at one side and the rear of the property, you will see na halos parehas lang ang lahat. Minimum TOSL, minimum USA, maximum ISA, MACA, maximum GFA, maximum TGFA, and maximum TGFA converted from GFA maximum. The only difference is the AMBF and the maximum PSO, because ang dalawang ito ay nakabase sa minimum setbacks. So yun lang ang naging diferensya sa values kapag yung building ay may firewall. Nag-iba yung sa AMBF and maximum PSO kapag nakabase sa minimum setbacks, kasi iba magiging requirement ng firewall at both sides, tsaka ibang requirement ng firewall at one side and rear of the property. So that's all for our discussion for R5. So again, watch out for my succeeding videos para naman sa iba pang mga zones like institutional, commercial, and so on.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. For a more comprehensive study on Rules 7 and 8 of the revised IR of the NBCP, please enroll at Atlas CDC Review. Email us at atlascdcreview@gmail.com, or you may join us at our FB group page, www.facebook.com/groups/Review.